All right, let me ask you something. What if the real secret to game-changing innovation wasn't about knowing more, but actually knowing, well, less? What if being a total outsider, somebody who has no idea what the rules are, was actually your biggest strength? It's a pretty wild idea, and that's exactly what we're going to dig into. And it all kicks off with one pretty surprising number. So here it is, 22.3. That's it. This was the average age of a small, scrappy team, supposedly led by Elon Musk, that was given this absolutely massive goal to totally shake up how the US government operates. I mean, just think about that for a second. The youngest person on the team was 19 and the oldest was only 25. And this really sets the stage perfectly, doesn't it? On one side, you've got just 6 young guys, and on the other, the entire massive, deeply rooted U.S. federal bureaucracy. The source we're looking at calls them a few brash young men who basically managed to throw this giant system into complete chaos, causing a huge panic among the people in charge. So the big question is, how on earth did they pull that off? Was it some kind of secret technology? Did they have a bigger budget? Nope. The argument here is that their most powerful weapon was way, way simpler. They just didn't know any better. They were too young, too new to the game to even realize what rules they were supposed to be following in the first place. And that right there brings us to the main idea, the real heart of this whole thing, what the author calls the paradox of rules. It's this idea that being an outsider, being ignorant, isn't a weakness at all. It's actually a kind of superpower. Okay, so to really get this, we have to talk about a specific concept, Guiju. Now, this is more than just, laws written down in a book. It's the unwritten customs, the traditions, this is just how we do things around here vibe. The author sees these as invisible fences that we put up around our thinking, boxing us in. And this quote really boils it all down to one sentence. The whole idea is super simple. The less you actually understand the established rules, the easier it is to innovate. I mean, that is a bold claim, right? It totally flips our usual idea of experience right on its head. So this thinking really creates 2 different kinds of people. You've got the rule breaker, whose ignorance of all that Guiju lets them focus only on one thing, innovation and disruption. And then you have the rule follower. This is the person who knows the system inside and out, so well that their main job just becomes keeping things the same. You see the difference? One is trying to create the future, while the other is busy preserving the past. Okay, so let's say you buy into this idea. How do you protect a brand new, fragile idea from getting squashed by the way things have always been done? Well, this is where the argument gets really interesting and, honestly, pretty provocative. The author gives us a whole list of people whose advice you should probably just ignore. First on the chopping block, the authorities. The thinking here is that people like elders, leaders, legal experts, even religious figures, they're also deeply invested in the current rules that they literally can't see another way forward. Their own expertise actually becomes a roadblock to innovation. And believe me, the list doesn't stop there. Historians? The argument is they know way too many stories about past failures. People who are really eloquent speakers and writers, they're just good at talking, but it's all theory. And get this, even your well-meaning relatives make the list. Why? Because their advice usually comes from a place of fear. Fear of risk, which is the absolute enemy of anything new. And now for probably the most brutal piece of advice in the whole thing. The article just comes right out and says it. Failure is not the mother of success. It's the mother of more failure. The mindset of someone who has failed or someone who's just not doing well is basically seen as a poison you have to avoid at all costs. Okay, whoa. That is some seriously harsh advice, right? But what's the philosophy behind it all? Why is breaking the rules not just like a cool strategy, but from this perspective, something that's absolutely necessary for us to grow? Well, the philosophy is pretty straightforward. Rules are temporary. The argument, which pulls from ideas in things like chaos theory, is that any rule is only good for a very specific time and a very specific place. What worked yesterday isn't guaranteed to work tomorrow. So if you cling too tightly to today's rules, you're basically blinding yourself to whatever breakthrough is coming next. And to really hammer this point home, the source throws this absolutely mind-boggling number at us. This number is meant to represent the almost infinite number of paths a human life could take. The way our ancestors lived, that's just one tiny, tiny drop in a huge cosmic ocean of possibilities. And that, of course, is the big question we're all supposed to be asking ourselves now. When you really think about this vast landscape of what's possible,
does it still make sense to just walk down the single, worn-out path that was laid out by someone else's rules?
And all of this brings the whole argument to a very personal place. The focus shifts away from big theories and tech billionaires, and it lands squarely on you and on your own life. So really, the whole thing boils down to this really simple check-in with yourself. Look, the point isn't that all rules are bad. If the rules you're living by are making you happy and free and content, then hey, protect those rules. But if you feel frustrated or in pain or just plain stuck, then the advice is pretty blunt. To hell with it. Try something else. Break your rules.
And that's really where this whole thing leaves us. The author turns this entire analysis into a direct, personal challenge. It stops being about grand theories or Silicon Valley stories. It's about you. So take a look at your own life, your own work, your own giju. What's the one rule that you're ready to start questioning?